I'm really glad that you could make it, both our team members and our customers. I'm going to spend just a few minutes because Harold advertised that I was going to talk about the state of GMT, and we're not really the 51st state yet, but you know, I'll do my best to let you know where we are, and maybe a little bit about the state of the hobby, mostly as it intersects us at GMT, because I don't have a crystal ball for the hobby, and I'll just try to give you a little update on where we are for maybe 10 minutes or so. And then I'm going to hand it off to Jason Carr, and Jason's going to show you, I think he's got a visual presentation as well, to show you a little bit about where we are on the development side. Jason's our director of development. So he really makes the trains run on time. So he's been an incredibly valuable addition to our team over the past few years. And you guys who work with him know that I am telling the absolute truth. So let's start with an overview of the state of GMT. In spite of 2020 and a quite unexpected global pandemic, the state of GMT is strong. In fact, it's never been stronger. We are stronger now in every aspect of our company than we have ever been. Last year, when we went into this pandemic, I called Tony Curtis about 2 months before. Tony does all of our finance. And I said, Tony, how long could we go if we had no revenue? You know, with our cash reserves, how long could we survive as a company? And he said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, you know, if this thing in China, if it gets to be a thing and you know, and they shut us down, I just want to be ahead of this curve. And so we had a really good strategic reserve at the time. And we were closed for 11 weeks, and we burned through over half of our strategic reserve. But we paid all of our employees, which I'm proud of, and you know, happy that we were able to do that for them. You know, keep providing their health insurance and all that. But you know, I'm not sure. And we had financing options lined up if you know it had gone on for 6 more months or something like that. But the point I want to make about that is that now, a year later, our strategic reserves are double plus, you know, what they were a year ago. So we had a really good year, in not only in 2020 but in early 2021. And so I won't bore you with all the sales business stuff. Harold and I could probably talk about that for about 3 hours, and he would probably educate me as usual even more. But basically, we're running about 14 to 15% year-over-year sales increases right now, which for a 31-year-old company, I mean, I'll take that. That's I'm pretty happy with that. But it's not, you know, the sales numbers are a result, and they're really just kind of an indicator. That it's all the things that make those sales numbers happen that matter in terms of how you build the operational teams and how you execute your strategic plan. And I know most of that stuff is boring to all you guys, so I won't go into that either. But I'll just say that financially we're stronger than ever, team-wise, and that's our capacity to create products. Team-wise, we are larger than we've ever been. We are more talented than we've ever been across the board. And individually, by the nature of the collaborative way that we do things at GMT, each of our designers and developers is getting better and better every time we do a project. Some of our designers laugh at me a little bit because they'll come in and I'll say, we'll be working on some project, and I'll say, remember, this is the worst game we're ever going to do together. And because I really believe that collaboratively we get better. And that's part of the fun for me, is knowing that it's just going to get better from here, because we're getting more skilled, we're getting more cohesive, we're getting better at working together. And at least so far, we seem to be making games that our customers like. And as long as that continues to be true, then I don't see any reason for this trend of growth to stop. Now, not everything that we have accomplished can just be laid at the feet of, you know, good operational practice from GMT. We're in the midst of about a 10 to 12 year mass resurgence in the game business. And I think most of you guys know that. Now, if we were back in 1990 and our product line was 3 hex encounter war games, then that strategic situation might not have had much impact on us. And as I look at our hex encounter side of our line today, which I still very much like and is very profitable for us, but we don't sell the numbers that we do, say, with a dominant species marine or something like that. I don't see that part of our company growing very much, but it doesn't have to, because we don't depend on that part of the company solely. So we can put out as many Mark Miklos and Mark Simonich hex encounter games. I probably left some people out, but you know, those are core games that our war game customers really, really love. We can keep doing those as long as the designers want to do them. We can do Downfall, you know, which I heard that John announced today and showed today. A hex encounter game, right, John? You can just nod if you want. Well, and it's going to be a beautiful hex encounter game. But the bigger growth in the game business doesn't really touch those games very much. It doesn't really make very much of a difference. On the other hand, where we have games like the original Dominant Species, games like Twilight Struggle that are out there closer to the mainstream of the game hobby, then those have taken big increases over the past 10 years. And that's where a lot of our strategic reserves come from, honestly. And so when your game's getting reprinted, a lot of times it's not from the orders that go on P500. It's from the extra strategic reserve that we've built from the 10th printing of Twilight Struggle or Battle Line, or, you know, even Paths of Glory, some of our CDGs. Now, what's happened on top of that is we've got these games now that kind of fit in the niches, in between, say, a war game and the more mainstream games. And the more customers that have come in and liked, for example, Voco's coin series, they've wanted to see other things like that. And so some of them play CDGs. It seems like Hex Encounter is about the last place they go. If somebody's never played war games before, they might play Paths of Glory or you know, Twilight Struggle, and then move to a coin game. Or, you know, Jason will probably tell you about our Irregular Conflict series, which is shorter versions of that asymmetric coin situation. So we're bringing a lot of customers in for those types of products that are in the niches. And what really excites me is that we're also bringing a lot of new design talent in. You know, I'm sure Voco will tell us in a little while, or at least I hope you will, Voco, about what's going on Discord with all the different designers that have come in, kind of like happened with Coin, but now with the follow-ons to Nevsky in that series, in the Levian campaign series. And so it's one thing to have customers that really like what we're doing, but it's another thing entirely to have people who like it so much that they want to take that particular part of history they're passionate about and join us and use a series that we already have, because that just makes us stronger and stronger and stronger over the long term. So where I focus is I want to make sure that we don't leave any of our customers. Like Avalon Hill left me in the 90s when they started doing Schmuck on a Camel instead of my favorite war games. Well, that ticked me off a little bit. And I don't want people feeling toward us like that. So as we migrate to doing more and more games like Dominant Species, or more games in Levian campaign or Coin, or, you know, faster playing CDGs, I want to make sure that the guys that almost solely play Mark Miklos's games still like us, and they're still happy with us, and they still see that we're giving Mark the same resources or better that we've always given him to do those games. That's important to me. And it's really the P500 program that lets me be able to keep that promise to people. Because as long as we have 500 players who like those games, and we got way more than that. I mean, you know, there's at least 3,000 or 4,000 players that like those games. We can keep making those games and publishing those games successfully for as long as Mark or any other designer wants to do it. And so I love that. And at the same time, I recognize the fact that we're all getting older every day. And I don't want to make this depressing in that sense, but from a company point of view, I would be, it would be wrong of me to not be planning for future and transitions and having, we always talk about new blood in the hobby. Well, I want that in our design teams and our development teams without ever once pushing any existing designer out. So I hope that makes sense, but it's why you see me supporting things like the Zenobia program that you guys are involved with, Harold, you and Voco, and I know a lot of you guys. It's why I supported Fred Serval last fall, and Jason and a bunch of the guys that helped with that. And I know, Morgan, you were involved with that too. In bringing in new designers, and especially younger designers. I love the fact that this year we put games on P500 with 20-something designers. That doesn't mean I don't want the 60 and 70-something designers. Those guys are awesome. I've been playing their games all my life. I don't want to stop. But in terms of looking at where GMT is going to be 25 years from now, and I want there to be a GMT 25 years from now, then it can't depend on me and the people who are my peers. I've got to make sure that we're bringing new blood in and new people who are as excited about the games they want to make as we are about the games that we wanted to make today. So I think we're in better shape as a company every time that happens. Now, there's challenges that come with that. We have 65 design teams now with about 103 designers, not all active, but most of them. And so that creates some stress on the pipeline. It creates some stress on the art department. Mark Simonich fairly regularly calls me and, asks me what I've been smoking. When we bring in a whole bunch of new designers or new designs, and I'm like, well, would you like me to turn them down and send them somewhere else? Well, no. So what we're constantly doing is building up the art department. And you guys can see that. Voco now has an embedded artist with the Levy and Campaign game that he's working on, and probably the series, who didn't work for us 2 years ago. So we're beginning to embed artists to help with this load. The Charioteer game we announced yesterday, for example, there's been an embedded artist with them all along. So the art is nearly final. We'll probably, based on the numbers so far, we'll probably hit 500 next week. And it's likely to go to the printer in a month, maybe 2. So we're trying to do things like that to address some of the pipeline issues while Mark continues to bring in good, permanent people working full-time inside our art department, guys like Terry Leeds, who I think most of you know the quality of his work. So expanding the art department at high quality is definitely a challenge for us as we grow. And it's something that Jason and I talk about a lot as we talk about what games we're getting ready to do. Let me just talk about a couple of quick challenges right now, and we may get these in the questions, but right now the biggest concern I have is not just a GMT concern. It is the inflation and slowdowns in the worldwide supply chain and shipping chains that we're seeing across the board. Virtually whatever industry you're in right now, if it's Apple Computer, they're having chip shortages. The car companies are having chip shortages, and we see boats stacked up in the ports, and delays in those ports. So we're being affected by that. We don't have the wherewithal to solve those level of problems, for the world. And so we have to kind of work in the margins and figure out what the best solutions are for us. And that's something that Tony and I are working on all the time. Another thing right now is our warehouse is not in the greatest of shape after a year of COVID. And we've been walking around in masks and basically we've just been trying to stay away from each other for a year while still getting our work done. That's not the optimization that we need in the warehouse. And so as we come out of this, one of the things for 2022 is we're going to do a full warehouse makeover. and optimize that, and including things like picking robots and stuff like that to go and really automate some of what's happening in the warehouse without having to get rid of any employees, so that what they're doing is more high value work for us. And I guess the last thing I'd say is, well, one other thing is on the customer service side, I think we've had a good reputation on that front for a long time. We're having big problems with email. And again, it's beyond us. It is the interconnectivity of the world. It is spam filters that are getting tighter and tighter for anything that doesn't come from the US, as we've got, cyber attacks and spam everywhere. And so a lot of the email that's coming from overseas just never arrives. And the overseas customer doesn't know. So that's horrible for us, because he thinks GMT ignored me. So the near term has been send them to chat. One of our people recommended to me the other day that we go to a 100% chat and phone only, no email. And when I first heard that, I thought, no, we can't do that. The more I think about it, if we man the chat line with 2 people at least for 24 hours a day, I think we might be able to pull it off. We would just have to train our customers. But that's a problem, because we can't have our reputation be GMT ignores overseas customers. So these are things we think about every day. It's probably not why you came to this seminar, but Harold, I wanted to have some fidelity to what you told them about what we were going to do. Anything that I've missed, ask him the questions that you want to know, and we'll get to those questions in between people. But I've talked long enough, so I want to give this over now to Jason Carr. And Jason, would you take us through what you have to share with us?
Yeah, thanks. So hi, everybody. I'm Jason. I'm the Director of Development at GMT Games, and I run GMT1, our solitaire game design studio. I want to show just a bunch of sneak peeks of stuff that's coming up, and then talk a little bit about what's in the pipeline, what we're doing with different game series. So I'm probably going to talk for about 10 minutes. If you have any questions while I'm talking, at the end. The first thing I want to show off, though, is this bad boy right here. So John and I got our advanced copies of Space Corp Ventures a little while ago. And I had the opportunity to get together with Bruce Mansfield, and we actually played this, and it is unbelievable. It's gorgeous. It's fun. Really loved playing that. So figured I would taunt everybody. So for those who don't know, that's going to be charging. I think next week, right, Gene? We're going to charge Space Corp Ventures next week. Is that right?
Yes, the 26th.
It's on the way to the warehouse, so it will be in your hands before too long. So I'm going to share my screen. I brought visual aids. So hopefully everybody can see a big, shiny, white, blinding screen that has a GMT logo on it. We good? All right. So like I said, I'm going to show off a bunch of stuff. So for starters, here's what's inside and the back of the Space Corp Ventures box. So we have these big, beautiful corporation mats that have unique powers for each one of the corps, contract cards so that every game you play is different. Really just a phenomenal product, and John did a spectacular job on this one. I want to also just call out, this is a GMT1 game. John and I worked on Solitaire for this. I mean, John did all of it. I just developed it. And special call out to Scott Mansfield, who just did a phenomenal amount of testing on this, was just an amazing tester for us. Tank Duel. So this is the guts of Tank Duel North Africa right here. So we have a bunch of new tank boards, new desert terrain cards. Everything plays Solitaire. It's going to be a lot of fun. So there's the tank pack that goes along with this, with additional tanks and scenarios. And Mike did a great job with this. I think Mike and I are really happy with how this turned out. I'm sure he'll talk about this more. Another game in our pipeline is Red Flag Over Paris. This is going to go to the printer real soon. I wanted to call this one out because this was a project that we did with GMT1. So Fred Serval, who was mentioned earlier, is the designer. He's such a big personality, we had to give him 3 developers. So myself, Joe Dewhurst, and Luke Billingsley were his 3 developers. And it took all 3 of us to contain him. This is the solitaire system that's in the box. So this 1 half sheet player aid, that's the whole solitaire system. That's all you need to play it. And it is driven by the same event cards that are in the box for multiplayer play. The game is a blast solitaire. Luke did the initial solitaire design and brought it to me, and I used some help from Bruce and from some other designers in the GMT1 group, and we kind of polished it up and got a really tight solo system for it that's a lot of fun. Speaking of solo, so this is Harold's game. I'm scooping his own game. So I'm showing off Harold's game, not Harold. So the map for this one is gorgeous. Terry Leeds did the map, and it is fantastic. Terry Leeds did the cards. Also, they look great. And then down at the bottom here is the solo system that I built for this game with Harold's help. So it's a simple Automa style bot. You flip over the card and you work it from top to bottom, and it takes 15, 20 seconds to do a bot turn. So you get to spend all your time thinking about your turn. And so this one's a lot of fun. I played this during my lunch breaks. I would play it like 2 or 3 times during my lunch breaks solo, and it was a blast. So really enjoying that. Some other different things that are coming. So these are some of the preview sneak peeks of cards coming for Fall of Saigon. So this is almost done. We're wrapping it up. I just got the playbook from Mark and Volko. And we're putting together the examples of play and just testing the final, crossed T's, dotted I's for the solo system in this one, which I'm sure Bruce will talk about when we get to him. And then people power. For those of you who didn't come to my presentation today or didn't see in the newsletter, we have these beautiful cards from Donal Haggerty for people power. They're just absolutely dripping with 80s vibes. And they're very different from the coin cards that we're all used to, but we really love this, doing something different. And the biggest thing that we've gotten positive feedback on is our Filipino testers. As soon as they saw that card back, they were like, oh my gosh, yes, the hand sign, that's so important. So I think we nailed it here. Really excited about these. Here's a couple more. The election cards I think are especially fun. When I was looking for inspiration for an 80s vibe, I found a sweater on a model exactly that color. So when Don sent this to me, that's it right there. That's what we were looking for. So that's a little sneak peek at what's coming soon. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here, and then I will get back to just me. So that's what's coming. That's what we're going to be shipping to you in the next couple months and the rest of this year, with a lot of other stuff. What I wanted to do is talk a little bit about some other stuff that's coming and what we're doing with GMT1 specifically. So for those who don't know, GMT1 is our in-house solitaire design studio. And a lot of people have come to me over the last year and said, hey, is this something you decided to do because of the pandemic? And Gene will tell you, I pitched this to him before there was a pandemic. I think that helping designers make their games playable solo is just table stakes for the market at this point. There's certainly a market for games that aren't soloable, but if you put solo in your game, it's going to sell more, and players appreciate the effort that goes into that. But more than that, I think that doing the work up front to put solo in your game can make your game better. It's way better to ship a solo system that was thought through and designed from the ground up than it is to tack something on at the end. Give designers resources to be able to do solo design, because I recognize not all of us are solitaire designers and not all of us are solitaire players. So we need to have a group of people who are dedicated to thinking that through. So I get to work with people like John Butterfield, Mike Berticelli. I'm working with Ben Hull right now. And I have support from a group of people who are dedicated to solitaire design, at least with part of their effort. So Bruce Mansfield, Scott Mansfield, Joe Dewhurst, Joe Schmidt, Sean O'Keefe. These people have been really instrumental in helping us be successful. And so thank you to all of them. You're going to hear from some of them tonight on what they're doing. But I wanted to talk a little bit about what that is. So with Red Flag Over Paris, Fred didn't have a solo system in the game. And it was doing okay on P500, but he brought that to me and Luke and said, I would really like to put solo in here. And so Luke went and built a solo system that was competitive and could play the game. But it was a flow chart, and it was a little hard to grapple with. And so my team, mostly me, but the rest of my team as well, took that and turned it into a more compact and usable bot. And the reason that I could do that and Luke couldn't was because I've worked with Bruce on Gandhi. And so I took a lot of the ideas that Bruce and I worked through and developed while we were working on Gandhi, and I applied them to Red Flag Over Paris. And so that kind of group of people who are sharing ideas and innovating together is what's going to drive forward the state of solitaire design. And that's what GMT1 is for. So we have a bunch of projects coming. I think most of you probably know about the CDG Solo system, Stuka Joe's system, which we love and are publishing a version of. That development on that is done. So the original 6 games that were in there, we've added a 7th game. We've added support for Commands and Colors Samurai. And then we're looking at the future of that system. So we'll probably do another pack with additional games in it based on what people are looking for and what designers are looking for. You know, one thing I will say is we put the games in there that we chose because the designers who are involved asked us or said we could. We don't just want to go add solo to a game for no reason. So Perry, who designed Illusions of Glory, came to me and said, can you help me do solitaire for this? And the result was the CDG solo system for Illusions of Glory. And that's something that we really feel passionate about supporting our designers in. So the next designer that we're supporting in that is we're going to support Clash of Sovereigns. So we're going to add 4-player support to the CDG solo system, which is something that hasn't really been done before. And we're excited about that. And we think that it's going to be a lot of fun for people. So some other stuff that we're working on right now, we have a solo system in the works for the Weimar Republic. And that's getting going with some support from Joe Schmidt and the In the Shadows guys. In the Shadows, we just posted a great AAR of the solo system in that, which Joe put together. That's a lot of fun and very narrative heavy. It lets you really kind of put yourself in the shoes of the French Resistance. As mentioned, People Power is in progress. And we're doing bots for a lot of small card games right now. So Red Flag Over Paris, Twilight Struggle, Red Sea, Flashpoint, South China Sea. And then we have a couple other projects that we're not just looking at new games, we're looking at old games too. And so without saying too much about them, there's a couple big games for us. Solo systems that we're working on, and we're excited to see how those turn out, and hopefully the things we get to share with you. So, you know, we're not just thinking about how do we support new games, but we're also thinking about supporting the games that you already have, and we're excited about that. On the development side, really just want to call out, you know, Gene said we're building teams here, so we have the strongest team we've ever had on the development side. There are 2 folks who work really closely with me that I think deserve recognition: Ken Kuhn and Joe Dewhurst, and they've been just great. They jumped right into all this and really helped get our games across the finish line. So we've done a really great job of building out teams to support them as well. So people like Fred Serval and Stephen Rengazis and Sean O'Keefe have been helpful on the development side and have worked with some of you in this room on your games. And that's all a product of that kind of team building mentality that Gene was talking about. So you know, there's almost every designer that has something coming up is here, so I'm not going to say too much about it, but I did want to give an update on 2 series that I directly work on. One is the Coin series, and one is the Irregular Conflict series. So the Coin series, I'm actually the series developer for that. We have 5 products on P500 right now. Fall of Saigon is going to go to the printer real soon as I get time to go through some final materials. And I'm sure Bruce will talk about Solitaire for that. People Power, which I demoed today, is getting real close, and we have some phenomenal art for that I showed. And then we have 3 more games that are in earlier stages of development: China's War from Brian Train, Red Dust Rebellion, which is our sci-fi coin set on Mars by Jay Carmichael, and The Pure Land, which is Onin War Japan by Joe Dewhurst. And we're really excited about that. We do plan on catching up. So those 5 things, we think they're going to be on your table sooner than later. And there's a lot of fun stuff coming down the pipeline in the Coin series. And then we have the Irregular Conflict series, which is a little bit of a spin-off of Coin. So the first 2 games there, Vijayanagara and Jest of Robin Hood, which just went on P500 yesterday, are coin-like. They have some coin mechanics, but they don't use the core coin model, and they play very differently than standard coin games. So if you have ideas, if you've toyed around with the coin sequence of play and thought, man, there's ways to do this, to be a fantasy coin game, or the Gangs of New York Herald, just saying, this might be a home for a game like that. And we would love to hear about it. We'd love to hear your ideas. If you have any ideas about that, just reach out to me and I'd love to hear them. Also, looking for people to do development, looking for people to do solitaire design. So if those things strike your fancy, just reach out to me. I'd love to talk. So that was probably a little bit more than 10 minutes, but I will yield the floor and the remainder of my time.
You did a lot better than I did, Jason, so don't worry. I want to answer one question real quickly, and then we're going to go. Mark Herman is on here now. So Mark, you're going to be next after I answer this question, okay? Rob asked, do we have plans to incorporate tablets for solo engine or tabletop game development? I like the idea of game assist apps. And I think there's something there. But I never like to jump into anything without having built infrastructure to do it. So one of the things I'm looking for and waiting for, and maybe even recruiting at some point, is to try to find a team of people that this is their thing. They love to use tablets to create game assist type programs, or even to help Jason with solo game assist bots. I think there's some future there, but we're not going to do it halfway. We're going to build a team and then do it right the best we can. I hope that answers your question, Rob. And Mark Herman, over to you.
Okay, is this working? I guess I'm doing this on my phone, so this is an initial...
It works great, Mark. You're doing good.
Oh, thank you, Harold. That's very kind of you. Let's see, project. So I will tell you that Pacific War is, all the pieces are actually either finished or in production. So there's nothing left. The counters are done by Mark Simonich. The map was done by Olivier Revenue. The rules are in there. Second full edit by Kai Jensen. I just gave the scenario book, the 79-page scenario booklet in, and some young man who just sent me a note. I forget his name, but he and I are speaking tomorrow. I'm just going to give him kind of a once over what's going on with that, and he'll start laying out the scenario booklet. And the play aids have been done and corrected ones, so I think they're pretty close. I'm sure there's a typo in there, but we'll catch that on the next look through. And Mark Simonich and I talked about the box cover. So I would say that it'll be totally ready to go wherever it needs to go by sometime by the end of June. It's definitely going to be finished. So we're at that point with the project. And then I don't know, Gene, maybe Gene will have to weigh in, but I guess we would probably have a game sometime by the end of 2021 or early 2022, depending on a whole host of circumstances. So that's where that project is. Rebel Fury, I actually, it's kind of like, I don't know if I think everybody knows this, or if you didn't know it, there's a old friend of a lot of us, a guy named Rick Barber, passed away literally just like 10 days ago or even less. And he was doing the maps research for Rebel Fury. And in a very sad moment, I got the last two maps I needed to finish Rebel Fury from on talk to him on the 28th of April. I got the last two maps when I got back from vacation on that Saturday, and I was supposed to speak to him on Tuesday, and somewhere between my getting the last two maps and Tuesday, he passed away. So we'll certainly give proper tribute to Rick, but I have everything I need to finish Rebel Fury. And in fact, in communication with Charlie Kibler, and the maps he's already basically done a full first version of the Chancellorsville map. It looks amazing. The way I work with Charlie is I said, make it look really good and make it look period. And what I'm getting from him is just awesome. So it's going to be beautiful as heck. And the counters are simple, but we'll get to those shortly. And that game is starting to that game is sort of going to, as Pacific War kind of moves fully into production, Rebel Fury will really start to supplant it. And then, of course, if you look on the P500, Triumvirate has moved very far along. We're in play testing right now. I think I saw, Gene, we were somewhere around 250 orders somewhere this afternoon, so halfway there. I'm confident it'll make it. So that one's a really cool game, and we've got a developer for that one, Ken. I think it's Ken, right? Something. Yeah. I mean,
hey Mark. Hey Mark. Yeah. What Rachel told me is that I screwed up. I put your name first. She said if I put Jeff's name first, we'd have 200 more orders by now.
Yeah, well, a deal's a deal. Anyway, we'll get it shortly, I'm sure. And then behind that, I'm starting to work on some other projects that I've been sort of tooling around with, but I'm not going to get into that in big detail. I just wanted to talk about the things that are really in the pipeline. And of course, as you just heard from Jason, Fall of Saigon is done. I guess it goes somewhere soon. So we got a fair amount of product coming along. So that's about it.
Thanks, Mark. We appreciate that. I'm not going to answer Jason's question, Harold.
But there's specific order. And by the way, I'm just because it's late here and I got to do some things. I'm going to sign off, but it's been great seeing everybody. And I'll be back noon tomorrow on my time, 9 o'clock your time. We'll be doing For the People. I had a good session of Empire of the Sun today. Take care.
All right, peace, brother. Thanks. We'll see you. So I want to try to answer a question in between here. So Mo asked, what are the plans for moving forward to coin digital, like Labyrinth and Fort Sumter? And as I said in Ananda's session today, the way it works with Playdeck is I give them a laundry list of games that I believe would best fit the software they've already created, their capabilities, and their market. And I let them know whichever one of these you want, we can get you designer support. We'll get you any kind of support you want. We get you a lot of play testers, but it's their decision. It's their company. And so they take my laundry list of games and make a decision, usually about what the next 2 are going to be. And we're in one of those cycles right now. I can tell you coin games are on the laundry list, but I'm probably going to, I don't know yet. And if I did know, I couldn't tell you yet, but I don't actually know. Sometime within the next month or 2, they will come back to me and say, here's the next 2 we want to do. And then I'll have a sense, and we may or may not be able to talk about it at that point. But I don't know yet. Coin is one of several things that they could choose to do next. So sorry, I don't have a definitive answer, but Mo, we are definitely planning to move forward with other GMT games of Playdeck, but they're always going to be the ones that make the call. The easiest ones for them to do are ones that, as those of you who work in the computer side of things for your day job know, for ones that they already have a lot of code and they could reuse code, that makes things easier. So to do a Twilight Struggle Red Sea, for example, when it's ready, I would be pretty sure they're going to do that because they have the Twilight Struggle code for that engine. But the other ones, they have to go basically build entire new engines, for example, to do a coin series. So that's up to them, and we'll let you know hopefully sometime later this summer. And you're welcome, Mo. Okay, let's go next East Coast guy, Ed Beach. I know, Ed, you've been up for a long time, so why don't you tell us what's going on in your world?
All right, I think I can be pretty quick. I did do a presentation 4 or 5 hours ago on Border Reavers and had a good turnout for that. So a lot of people got introduced to that game earlier today. I'm going to share screen real quickly because I have a slide that shows what the status of that game is right now. We're just entering the art department on both this and the other game that I am working on, which is Tanto Monto, where I'm the developer for Carlos Diaz Narvaez, who came up with a new game to be a prequel in the Here I Stand series. And both these games we're getting underway with the art department sort of as we speak. Yvonne, who's been working with Volko on the amazing art for Almoravid, is sort of taking a first crack at these, and he's doing a lot of the graphical art for us. Kind of the cool things about Border Reavers that I highlighted in the presentation, Gene and Jason both helped me nudge me in the right direction to encourage me to look at putting a solo mode in. And that came out very, very well. I was very pleased with what I was able to come up with there. And so we've actually committed to adding a third rule book to the game, which is going to be a dedicated solo rule book along with the lines of what was done for Space Corps, so that people who are playing the game solo don't have to have any of their waters muddied. They can just dive right in, learn the solo rules, and it's exactly what they need to play. I guess the last thing I want to say about Border Reavers is we are done playtesting. I have this one playtest group who's gotten so good at the game, I can no longer compete with them. They just clean my clock every time I play them. I showed in my demo today how badly I fared against them in one of my recent games. And it's the first time I've ever had a playtest group say, you know, this game's ready to go. We're done with it. We don't want to tweak it anymore. Just go ahead and ship it. And so I took that as, wow, that's a great sign. But the thing is, they want to keep playing it. So like I had to hold them off all week this week and said, no, wait, I've got to do a presentation ready to go. I'm doing it at San Diego HistCon this weekend. Until we get that, I get the presentation together, I have to hold you off and playing another game. So starting tomorrow, I'll get them the files and we can go ahead and get started again. Tanto Manto, I don't have a slide for that because I didn't do a talk on that. But I am very pleased to say that that's well along in the playtesting as well. And we have some, made really good progress in terms of getting the game in the kind of shape where, I'm all ready for it to go into art. We're laying out the map right now. We've figured out how to sort of streamline where we're putting things between charts and on the map to get it so that it's going to play, just like it plugs right into the Here I Stand series as another member there. So I'm doing the development there. It's the first game I've actually developed, which is a kind of a new role for me. But part of that is because Carlos has a very good handle on the history. He's done a very good job of coming up with a game that has all the elements that a game in the Here I Stand series should have. So it's just been up to me to make sure the English translations are right, make sure he's using all the mechanics exactly the way I think they should. And so we've kind of gone through all the rule sections, through all the cards, tweaked everything up. And I've sent him some of my top Here I Stand players to have them take a whack at the game. And so I think we're making a lot of progress on that front as well. And I guess the last thing I have that I pushed down the line that I'm not working on actively, I'm kind of just waiting on, is there is a Virgin Queen reprint that's on the P500 list, and it's nearing 500 orders. But I just have too much going on with the first two games. So at the moment, I'm holding off on that one. I've been collecting all the information on what players want to see tweaked and adjusted. That's not going to be like a reprint where people need to buy a whole new version of it. It's just going to be basically a cleanup reprint, but that game's been out for 9 years now. So there's a good amount of kind of tightening up of things we want to do there when it does go out for reprint.
Thanks, Ed. I appreciate that. And if you need to go like Mark, I'm not pushing you guys out, but feel free if you need to leave, I understand.
I'm going to head out soon, but thanks for having me.
I'm gonna not take questions for a few to try to get these East Coast designers done so they can leave if they need to. So I'd like to go straight to Mark Miklos next. If you would, Mark, it's all yours.
Well, thank you very much, Gene and Harold. A quick thank you again to you for the invitation. This is my first time at SD HistCon and frankly, my first time doing a virtual con of any kind. So I'm a newbie in that respect in this format, but so far it's been a very professional and a lot of fun for me to participate. I'm going to be brief as well. I invite everybody on this Zoom call, though, to attend my presentation tomorrow from 3 to 5, where we'll go into detail on the Battles of the American Revolution series, what it is, a little bit about its history. We'll do a demo, several game turns from Volume 9 in the series, The Battle of Rhode Island, and then we'll take a sneak peek at Volume 10, which is the Battle of White Plains, which, if I may, I'll just say a few words about where we are on that. It was unimaginable to me in 1998 when Gene consented to take a chance on me, and then we developed and designed and developed the first edition of Saratoga. It was unimaginable to me that here we would be 23 years later with a series that's still going strong. In those 23 years, we've published 9 volumes comprising 12 distinct battles and 25 scenarios. When we finish Volume 10, White Plains, obviously that'll be 10 volumes, 28 distinct scenarios in among all of that Revolutionary War tableau. So it's been a blessing, and I think there's a lot of reasons that it's had this kind of success. We try to, we have a core system. And so, of course, when you learn to play one of these games, you can quickly play any other game in the series because they all revolve around the core system. However, every game loads in its own unique chrome to represent what made that particular battle special. And White Plains is no exception to that. There's some unique rules in White Plains that put you there in 1776 at the end of the New York campaign. 30,000 protagonists parked themselves for 9 days on a front that was only 3 miles wide. For the period, that's an enormous amount of combatants. Historically, the Battle of White Plains was really, you could call it the fight for Chatterton Hill. 4,000 redcoats and Hessians attack uphill and push a couple of thousand Americans off the hill. And historically, that was the extent of it. The armies sat there for 9 days looking for an opening. If you'll indulge me just to quote two sentences from the historical essay that I have in the game, like two heavyweights maneuvering to shorten the ring, each sought an opening, how to press the attack on favorable terms, and Washington to receive the attack on fortified ground of his choosing. The prospect for a decisive outcome was ever present. The fact that it didn't occur is a fascinating story. And, part of the motivation for doing this series is to tell the story of the Revolution. Frankly, we've lost history in our curriculum. I'm talking to a room full of historians here, so you understand what I'm saying when I say that. It's tragic, and the history of the founding of the nation and the sacrifices that those individuals made needs to be told, and it needs to be told experientially through gameplay. So we do that. We teach the history. We offer exciting, challenging, well-balanced games, and we make each one a little bit unique. And I think that accounts for some of the longevity and the ongoing popularity of the series. In the Battle of White Plains, we're offering 3 scenarios: the fight for Chatterton Hill, 4.5 game turns, very tight, very tense. Every single strength point matters. A full 1-day scenario that takes place on October the 31st. That was the day that General Howe intended to launch his grand assault, but when he woke up in the morning, it was raining, and after 4 straight hours of heavy, cold autumn rain, he called off the attack. Nevertheless, we know where all the units were placed, and we have the opportunity to model what that grand assault might have looked like if it had occurred. And then for the first time in the BOAR series, something, at least for me, a little bit of a stretch, the campaign game is 42 game turns. It spans 4 full days. I'm not going to claim that BOAR is any kind of a monster game. It doesn't rate that doesn't rate that that label. But for BOAR, that's pretty ambitious. You're going to be able to manage your massive army over the course of a 4-day period in constant contact with the enemy, contending with terrible weather, because only the first day was bright and sunny. The rest of the time was very rainy and very sloppy. And can you break through? Can you achieve a decisive victory as the British, as General Washington? You're welcoming the attack because you're dug in. You have 40 guns. You have your flanks can't be turned because of the position you chose. What's going to happen? I think it's going to be very, very exciting to model that. We have 487 pre-orders on P500. Maybe somebody on this very Zoom call will put us over 500. We're so very, very close. That was the number as of this morning, and we've only been up on P500 since last month. So I think the progress there has been very, very good. Gene said something earlier that I took to heart. I have 99 witnesses here, Gene, so I'm going to hold you to it. You said that as long as designers want to keep designing, you're gonna provide the resources and provide the satisfaction to those people in our market who crave this kind of a game. Well, once we realized, Gene, that there was a series here, that this was more than a one-trick pony, I set a personal goal, and my goal was to do 10. I thought a volume of 10 was really a statement. It was something it was a legacy I could leave my children. My dad designed 10, and there they are on the shelf. So a couple of years ago at PresCon, a bunch of us were sitting around during a BOAR final, and somebody asked me, well, Mark, how many are you going to do? And at the time, Rhode Island wasn't quite, the design was finished, but we were in the production queue and it wasn't on the streets yet. I said, well, Rhode Island's basically done. You'll get that next. That's number 9. And I'm going to do 10. That's my goal. And I don't mean to, this is not hyperbole, but there was a minor outcry in the room. You can't stop at 10. There were 13 colonies. And if you think about it, that's brilliant marketing, isn't it? A self-respecting series on the American Revolution should have 13 volumes. And so my next ambition, Gene, is to press on. I've already got an idea for number 11, and we're about to wrap number 10. So very shortly, I'll start preliminary work on that. The Battle of Green Spring, which was British Benedict Arnold against Lafayette and von Steuben as part of the Yorktown campaign. Also, just to sort of innovate a little bit, a lot of people ask me, well, why don't you do Bunker Hill? Why don't you do Trenton? Why don't you do Princeton? Well, our scale won't permit that. There we go. Our scale won't permit that because we're 200 yards per hex. We are 100 men per strength point, but we all know and love Bruno Sinigaglio. Bruno, and with the help of Dave Stifler, who's on this call, I see, as his developer, they are innovating something called small bore. We're keeping the BOAR core system, but we're dropping the scale down to 25 yards per hex and a dozen to 18 or so men per strength point, if I remember correctly. And this is going to allow us now to open the field to so much more, because so many of the battles in the Revolution, of course, were so small, even though they were vitally important. Cowpens is well along in design. And then we have another gentleman helping us with Hubbardton and Bennington, and even something called Cooch's Bridge, which was part of the Brandywine campaign and fought in the state of Delaware. So small bore is coming, and small bore will allow bore to make a hard left and go down a tangent path, which will allow us to introduce many, many more smaller although very important battles to the series. So that's pretty much it for me tonight. I encourage everybody to join us on Sunday from 3 to 5, where we will go into considerable detail, do some demoing, and I'm going to sneak peek the White Plains map. I'm going to share my screen for White Plains, and I think folks, even though it's just my homemade prototype map, it's pretty spiffy, and I think folks will be able to get a good idea of what is to come. But thanks again for this opportunity, Gene and Harold. I appreciate it very much. I'll listen for a few more minutes, and then I've got to do an honor guard at church in the morning, so I'll be jumping off as well.
All right, Mark, thank you. And you design them, and I'll take care of the rest, okay? That's easy for me to say. Our team will take care of the rest. I can't do anything.
Yeah, Gene doesn't do anything.
Truer words. Okay, I'm going to go right to Morgan because I know it's late there too, Morgan. So go ahead.
Thank you, Gene. So progress, well, there's not that much progress, unfortunately, to report. But actually, Hubris is in a fairly good place, at least as far as the original scope is concerned. I would say the base scope, which is the base 3-player games and all the scenarios, are now, I think, fully developed. We are essentially running out of playtesting. We've got some, I mean, I'm blessed with not only Kevin Bernards as a developer, but a very great group of playtesters. Some of them are on the call. Thank you. And they're basically running out of issues to report. And I'm quite happy with that. I mean, it plays well. It plays fairly smoothly. We're still tightening up, you know, a few wordings on event cards or leader cards. I mean, but even that becomes, you know, few and in between. I don't even get something in every test report. So so that's good. The thing is that I can be very foolish at times, and we have also developed, and that was part of the plan, a 2-player version, because the base game is 3 players, and that went very well too, and that works fine. But in the process of developing the 2-player version, the idea came to me that the same principles could very well work to do a full solitaire mode, which was not in the plan. And so I started working on that. Unfortunately, then life intervened, as it tends to be, and I got a new job, which is basically taking me like 12 hours a day, and including an upcoming relocation to Europe, which is taking what's left. So I'm finding it quite hard to work on that solitaire mode. Obviously, GMT1 is something that we're looking at, but there's just no way I can pitch it to GMT1 until I have at least developed the basis of the logic of how the various, you know, kingdoms can play. So Jason, I think we had a quick talk about that already, but basically I want to get it to the point where I can pass it to you so you can actually make it work and streamline it and polish it off, because I don't think I can do that. But I think the very principle is the thing is, I'm not much of a solitaire player. I play solo a lot, like many other players. Hubris is extremely solo friendly, just like a coin game. There's no hidden information. You know, there's a ton of chaos coming from event cards and stuff. It plays great solo if, you know, free-handed. But so I'm not so much of a solitaire player. But then the game handles already a lot of minor powers. It handles Rome. It handles one of the kingdoms when you play 2 players. And that's built into the event system. So this is what I'm extending to do the full solitaire. So I'm kind of restricting a little bit the way the map works. So some satrapies will not be playable. And then I am switching some of the recurrent event cards, which are driving the behavior of these minor powers or Rome, and adding what, you know, sort of the base behavior of the non-played major kingdoms. The one thing which that's fairly easy, and that's essentially done. Where it gets a little bit more complicated is that Hubris has a very important concept, which is peace and war. history at the time, there were no peace treaties in the sense we understand it, but when two kings made peace, they swore a very solemn oath in front of the gods. And there is abundant proof in history that there is not a single instance in the couple centuries that the Hellenistic period lasted that one of these oaths of peace was ever broken. So until, as long as both kings who swore that oath are alive, there's no going to peace. And that's one of the key elements of the game, because you have to be very careful about when you want to get to go to war, because the war cannot last forever. There's a ton of things that are going to push you to make peace at some point. But once you've made peace, you're stuck. You're stuck for quite a bit of time. So and so obviously when you get into war, many more things happen. I mean, campaigns and sieges and subjugation. And so this part that cannot be handled purely through the event cards. And at the moment, I've got something of a chart, so which I don't like too much. But I mean, I think it can work. But definitely, I mean, I want to lay out these basic principles, and then I will pitch that to you, Jason, for you to make something great out of it. So that's my plan. The thing is that time is kind of running out before I relocate to Paris, so I expect even more disruption when I do that for at least a couple months. So I'm trying to have this before the end of June, but we'll see how it goes. I mean, it's kind of the thing. What makes things even, I mean, the other problem is that to me, I mean, to a large extent, the game is done. I mean, what is of interest to me, the original scope is done. It works. All the scenarios are done. I've started reading some of the stuff. And so my mind is already kind of wandering towards other application. I mean, I was actually talking about it yesterday, I think, during the demo that we had for Hubris. And thank you to all of those who attended. I think it was there was quite a crowd, and it was a very interesting session. But I'm pretty set on what will be the next in the Hubris series, if I may say so, which is actually kind of a graal game of mine, which is the successors period. So the early part of the Hellenistic period. The more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm convinced that the engine as it exists today is now to such a state that it will allow me to give it the treatment I have been trying to do for probably the best part of 30 years, I would say. so that's probably going to be the next one. But I have absolutely no idea when I will be able to get to that. I mean, before that, I need to finish the solitaire system, and then I need to do small things like writing the extended example of play, writing the playbook. I mean, it's anyone familiar with Pendragon knows that I can be a little bit how do you say, talkative and make these long books. So anyway, so essentially, I would say, Gene, as far as the original commitment for Hubris, this is done, and it works great. I feel that we are really close to being able to provide a full solitaire mode, allowing to play every single scenario solitaire from every kingdom's perspective. I cannot 100% commit that it will work because it's not complete yet, but I have a very good feeling about it. So I'm sure that, GMT1, Jason and Bruce and others can make it work, because if I can glimpse it, I'm sure they can do it. Well, so that's kind of where we are.
What I heard, Morgan, is that you are done with your part. And the fact that there is no solitaire system yet is 100% Jason's fault.
No,
right?
It's Gene's fault, actually.
Okay.
No, Gene, I mean, I was the one originally who actually was fairly making stringent argument that the game did not need a full solitaire mode because it's very solo friendly. I remember that. And I still I still think it's true. I don't think you need one, but we can provide one, and we know some people like it that way. And so, you know, I mean, an option would be to say, you know what, just finish it, and maybe we do a C3I or an extension. But I understand that we have such a heavy pipeline. I mean, the game's not going to go in production anytime soon anyway. So, so yeah, it's probably worth the effort to try to get it ready to be part of the original box. Oh yes, the thing I wanted to mention is this comes with essentially no extra rules overhead. The two-player system comes with less than half a page of, it's not even rules, it's more like, you know, kind of guidelines or instructions on how to interpret the way it works. There's no new rule, there's no new principle. It just coming through the event cards, right? There might be a little bit more to handle, as I said, the war periods when we do full solitaire. And Jason is going to hate me because he will come back and say, I mean, Morgan, you committed to something that doesn't work. But I truly believe, and I truly think we can deliver this solitaire experience with essentially no extra overhead. I have the utmost admiration to those who develop the bots for the coin system. I mean, they are great. I'm completely unable to do that. But one thing which has always bothered me is that they come with nearly the same load in terms of pages of rules than the base system.
Yeah.
And I'm fairly active supporting Pendragon on BGG and other forums. I swear that to date, and for the past 2 years, I would think, 90%, if not 95% of the questions we're getting deal with the bots. And this is not any, you know, it's not any failing from those who develop these bots. It's just that these things are intrinsically complex and fiddly and a lot of border cases, etc. So, and to me, that's as a player, it's a turn off. I mean, I don't want to have to absorb, you know, half again or as many new pages of rules and go through other systems. So I know that as a player, I would not use a solo system if it means getting 20 extra pages of rules, right? I think there's a ton of progress. Bruce, what he did with Arjuna, and when I see what Jason sort of taunted us with for Red Flag over Paris or things like that, that's definitely the direction we need to go. So, Jason, something is coming your way sooner or later, but definitely if it comes back and you tell me there's no way we can do it with less than, say, 5, 10, 20 pages of rules, I would say, okay, no go, we stop that.
Thanks, Morgan, I appreciate it. Hey, everybody else, I hate to say it this way, but Harold has a hard stop at 8 o'clock. Okay, he's got to be out. So we have more designers here than we thought we were going to have. We probably got like at least 10 or 11 left to go, and we've got 47 minutes. So I would really like to get everybody to be able to talk. So if you would, try to keep it as brief as you can. I'm not telling you to say your name and get off, but you know, try to keep it brief. And I just may not get to questions. I'm sorry. So let's go to Volko. And Volko, let us know what you're working on, please.
Okay. Coin-wise, the last thing I produced is parts of Fall of Saigon with Mark and Jason and Bruce. They've already mentioned that. So that's coin series done. Moving right along. In the last 6 months on a little game, Hunt for Blackbeard, which is a 2-player 45-minute game that was on P500 and I hope will be back. I have not found anything to change in the 2-player game over the last 6 months, and I'm still very excited by this project. But the challenge is taking essentially a double-blind hunt game and reproducing that experience solitaire. And I have one of the bots I did, and one I've got about half done. Sent one of them to the GMT1 folks to have a look at, and they came back with why it really wasn't very good at all. And so I think what I need to do, and what I've been working on there incrementally, and I'll say why in a moment, why that is incrementally, is to communicate the rules for the bot that I envisioned much better than I did, because it was just very hard work to even interpret my little symbology and such. And then once I've done that, I probably, if people aren't reacting to it, testers aren't reacting to it better than they have been, at some point we'll send up the flare to Jason and say, okay, here's what I've tried to do. I think I provide the full documentation so that GMT1 can understand it. What do you think? Do we have to start from scratch, or can you build on this to make something great? So that's all in the future hunt for Blackbeard. But the reason that that's been so incremental is because I've been spending so much time on Levy and campaign. I've been very excited by the reaction to Nevsky, both from players and critically. Fairly obscure topic, and does seem to have captured an audience. And it was the first in a series, Levy and campaign. And what the purposes of that series is similar to my original idea with the coin series, is to fill in a gap. I want to do my part to kind of fill in the troughs in the repertoire. And the trough here is the dearth of treatments of the Middle Ages, so 1,000 years, 500 to 1,500 about, and especially at the operational level. So not the tactical battle games, we've got that, not the strategic, diplomatic kingdoms and all that, but how did medieval armies form and maneuver against each other, sustain themselves, and disband. And so that's what Levy and campaign is about. And so Nevsky was out at one corner of medieval Europe, Almoravid in the other corner of medieval Europe, which is a Reconquista episode in the 11th century. The art on Almoravid, volume 2, is almost done. I've got the proof from Charlie Kibler of the 66-page historical and examples of play background book. So we're proofing that right now. The game is chock full of, I think, brilliant 11th century medieval style art from Ivan Cáceres Cruz, who Ed mentioned. In fact, the team is a mostly all Spanish team on Almoravid. Researcher Alberto Alegre Jove, another researcher on the art side, Ignacio Cobos Rey. And so I think it's just packed with authentic history of Reconquista Spain. And it's almost, I mean, the whole package, Gene, is almost done. We got like a couple little art items, and then I think it's ready to be printed. So the really exciting thing, however, for me on Levy and campaign is what's happening on Discord that Gene mentioned. So I had noticed, of course, that there's a very active, collaborative, inventive coin series community on Discord, and that community has now produced games that are going to be published as coin or coin spin-off games. And what's happened is that as we've all, or so many of us at least, gotten more familiar with this kind of thing, that is meeting together on Discord, and not just playing games on Vassal or Tabletop Simulator, but designing games and developing games and doing so together collaboratively online. It seems to work very well. And so a designer, Francisco Garija, also in Spain, talked to me about doing a War of the Roses volume for Levy and campaign. He's done that, Plantagenet. It's already in playtest, and in fact, he demoed it here at SD HistCon. And of course, as with the coin series, he's come up with twists and directions that I never would have thought of to cover that medieval conflict. It will have scenarios in all three Wars of the Roses at the operational level. So he basically just set up a Discord server to help him test and develop that game. And I said, well, why don't we just make this for the whole series? And we now have, because I knew we already had other designers doing the same thing. So we have about a dozen designers on there with different projects in the series covering multiple centuries and multiple parts of medieval Europe and the Mideast. progressing at different stages. Some are very early on, and some are very active. And for me, my particular project in all of that is called Inferno, which is a collaboration with a veteran Italian wargame designer, Enrico Cerbi, assisted by Italian wargamers in helping me with research and validating the model. And that's now already also started in testing. And so I'm hoping that one or more of these titles will be ready for P500 later in the calendar year. And I'm finding that experience of collaborate with lots of designers collaborating on related projects all in one forum, along with, of course, testers and developers. I'm finding that extremely exciting and stimulating. So I'm hoping that that continues to grow. And indeed, if anybody here is interested in seeing what's coming up in operational medieval warfare settings in the Living Campaign series, please get in touch with me and join us on the server, because we've got basically new twists and turns and debates coming out every day. And so that's what's taking up the 90% of my time that's keeping everything else a bit incremental.
Thank you, Volko. I appreciate that. I can't wait to see those, especially Almora, but it looks so beautiful. And just real quick, we have a major GMT support effort in Spain with Spanish designers, Spanish artists. We are trying to help them grow their hobby there. We're trying to help them get GMT games reprinted in the Spanish language. So you see, we have several teams that have partnered, and I tell the Spanish designers when they come to us and say, what's the fastest and easiest way for us to get published by GMT? And I always tell them, do a co-design. Go in and work with Volko or work with Ed, or find a designer of a system that you would like, you think your particular historical expertise or study fits, and work with them. Something our customers already do. It's not the only place we do that. You know, Gina kind of did that with Jerry, with Skies Over Britain or Skies Above Britain. So that's a very effective way to kind of coattail on the popularity of an existing designer or system, and there's no negative there at all. It's just it's all to the good. It helps a designer get their design published. So I think I have a few guys left on the East. Mark, would you like to tell us about bayonets and tomahawks or anything else that you're working on?
Sorry, I was muted. I'll be very brief because I'm new here, and thanks, I feel in the family. And senior designer, have a lot to say. So very briefly, I'm really surprised at the reception of the game. The system is being called innovative. I didn't think of it that way. I just did my best to portray that period. And I see the potential for other games using the same system. And recently it became clear to me that I'd like to do a game on the full 3-month siege of Quebec using that system on a more operational level. It's never been done since 1976 with Columbia game Quebec 1759. And also, I'd like to do a 3-pack scenario expansion for Bayonets and Tomahawk. I had the scenario of King George War that we didn't publish because it was out of focus of the main game. I'd like to do the invasion of Canada by the Revolutionary American and the Pontiac War. So this would be 3 scenarios, and we could take advantage of that to plug in a full solo system, maybe with Jason's team. And one thing that is clear is that I don't want to do that alone anymore. I love hearing team building, spirit, collaboration, and I'm open. Send me people, we'll discuss and we'll make something. So that's all I have to say, and thank you very much for welcoming me in the GMT family.
Gene, if I can interrupt, Mark also owes me a 1760 scenario. So Mark, put that on the list if you don't mind.
It
No,
is in the
thank you, Mark.
playbook. It is in the playbook, Carol. You have it already. We will argue on your podcast.
No, I appreciate that update, Mark. And this is probably, I think it is your first public seminar as a GMT team member. So welcome to the family. And I got
Thanks.
a couple other guys here, Saverio and Matthew. Excuse me if I didn't say either of your names right. I haven't actually met you face to face yet, but I want to welcome you both. Saverio, why don't you tell us what you're working on?
Well, thanks a lot for everything this year. I mean, the Volko had mentioned this Coin Discord server in this last crazy year. That for me has been really a balm, and it's just been such an exciting place to see such just high level intellectual discourse and these diverse ideas, and the designs are just fantastic. So it's been a wonderful part of this year. Designing Vijayanagara, the Deccan Empires of medieval India, has been the best part of this year for me. And it's been engrossing, and we feel like we're kind of catching lightning in a bottle with this 90 to 120 minute kind of epic narrative, but using the coin mechanics. So it will be the first game in the Irregular Conflict series, which borrows some of the game mechanics from coin, but takes it into a different modeling direction. So instead of support axis and control, we have a tributary system and some other interesting asymmetries along those lines. Echoing what Gene had said, I think another one of the big parts of surviving this last year for me has been the collaborative effort with the extremely multi-talented Matthew Johnson, who I'll pass it over to. But I think I've said good night to Matthew after my wife more often than not in the last 9 months. So it's been great.
Thanks very much, Saverio. Matthew, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Matthew. Thanks for welcoming us in the GMT family. Yeah, it's been a year of discovery, starting from my Coin fan-made Bakumatsu, which is still a topic I really dear to my heart, but so much learning with so many people, Jason and everybody on the Coin Discord. We've built that together. And now to have a chance to have something published, like we worked so hard, and to try to have that coin system that we love so much. And you know, we kind of studied that system so much throughout the last year, discussed it so much, that now we're taking it and trying to see how it can be streamlined and tweaked a little bit. But also I'm listening to more old school legendary designer about how their deep history and narrative. So we also want to put that in, and I have a huge respect more and more that the history is the #1 part here. You know, yes, you can make it more streamlined. Yes, you can make it more accessible. But it's about the history, and your game needs to tell that, and it's a challenge. I'm looking forward to work with Saverio again. It's been amazing last year, me and him, so many hours. Like I don't even count anymore, and it's been amazing. We complete each other very well. So yeah.
We just have to make sure that Saverio's wife is okay with that.
I want to call out the graphic design you've seen on the P500 page and on Twitter and Tabletop Simulator comes from Mathieu, and his skill is undoubted. I mean, look at that. It looks like candy. It's amazing. And then there's 2 team members not mentioned, Corey Graham. They're not here, Corey Graham and Eman Matthews, and they're just as much in this. Every one of them does something different, and it's really cool to see a team of 4 people working on it. So good, amazing stuff.
Thanks, Jason, and thanks, guys. Very, very cool. I'm so happy that you guys are part of our teams now. Your enthusiasm for your topics, it just shines through in what you do, your passion for it. And I think one of the things you'll find is that some of these guys who've been doing this for 30 or 40 years, they still got passion. And that's what I love about what we're doing together. It's a joint, passionate endeavor with a bunch of smart people that also play well with others. And so when you're in an environment like that, there's no limit, there's no top end to how much you can learn and how much you can grow. And I mean that for me every day. And I've been doing this for a really long time. And for the guy who comes in tomorrow with a new game, we all have a lot to learn and a lot to grow. And I think the best is yet to come. But I'm really glad you guys are part of us. And I appreciate everything you bring to our teams. All right, did I miss anybody on the East Coast? All right, then I'm going to go to a former East Coaster and let Ananda enlighten us.
Thanks, Gene, for having me and for putting on this event, and Harold for putting on the whole event. I am working on so what I'm working on is a game about the French Revolution. That is where my head is headed next. It is going to be a 2-player game about the French Revolution. It may or may not have struggle in the name, depending on the vibe. And it is going to, and what I have told Gene is that if the weekend in the warehouse happens in October in person, I've promised Gene I will bring a prototype. The French Revolution was a natural topic to go on to after Imperial Struggle. Imperial Struggle, for a good chunk of its lifetime, had a French Revolution turn in it, which I cut because it was too much, and it was and doing the French Revolution with Imperial Struggle's rule set proved to be kind of a bridge too far to mix military metaphors. But doing a full game on the French Revolution, it caught my imagination pretty hard, and I'm excited to move forward with it. Also working on, or it's probably an exaggeration to say working on, but some ideas for additional Imperial Struggle content have been swirling around in my head. I mentioned this in my Imperial Struggle session earlier today. But in addition to having supplied Jason with the bare bones of a solo mode for Imperial Struggle, I'm also thinking about some additional content. Some event card additions, potentially some investment tiles, and doing some different stuff with the investment tiles. Yes, the chat has some excellent name suggestions. Thank you. I'll take all those under advisement. And also some potential war tile tweaks, or not tweaks, but expansion material, right? Those are definitely kicking around. Jason Matthews, the co-designer on Imperial Struggle, has a hit list of events that didn't make the cut in the first game, and he's excited to potentially get into the next into some expansion content. And I'll talk with Gene and Jason, and we'll figure out when and if the best time to get that to players is. The other idea that I've had, and again, this is nowhere near prototype, but is a project sort of in my head tentatively titled The 20th Century. And in some ways, it is an application of Imperial Struggle to the 20th century, but with significant updates to make that happen. And in particular, and don't hold me to this, any of you, it might have more than 2 players. So, yeah, I said it. So that's the substance of what I'm working on. And I know most of us have day jobs. Mine also is games. So sometimes it's a little hard to take game design energy, to focus game design energy outside of work. But the French Revolution, the reading I've been doing on the French Revolution. I mentioned this in a separate discussion with Volko a couple days ago, but in the designer's notes to Andean Abyss, Volko talks about how it is possible, it is possible to get books about the Andean, the Colombian insurgency that are completely full-featured, fully fleshed out arguments that have absolutely no common premises with one another, right? You have starting from completely different intellectual postures and interpreting the same historical timeline in radically different ways. And the French Revolution is like this as well. And it is and I'm really enjoying the research part of this. But like I said, the research is all very well, and the book reading is proceeding at pace. But if that weekend happens, there will be something on the table. That's all I have.
Thank you so much, Ananda. I can't wait. And I wrote down, Ananda promises that 20th Century will have 2 to 6 players. Gina Willis. And I saw Jerry's name on here, and if he wants to jump in on any of this, I'm fine with that. But Gina, why don't you go ahead?
Thanks, Gene. Hey, everybody. And Jerry, hi, Jerry. I don't know if you're here. If you are, that's great too. Thanks for those of you who attended our demo last night of Skies Above Britain. And I've heard good things back about it. And I think it showed us things too as we go on. I think we announced, well, for those of you who don't know what that is, Skies Above Britain is the latest extension of the Skies Above or Skies series of solitaire air combat games. And that was Jerry's series, but we co-designed this latest one, Skies Above Britain, to be a squadron level Battle of Britain game. And we announced last night that we're probably roughly about 3 months away from handing everything over to GMT, because we've had a full round of alpha play testing. We've just completed a first round of beta play testing where we had a physical component team that Jerry was running and a tabletop simulator team that I was running. And then we're about just this week going to go into the second phase of a beta play test with a revised rule book and an updated simulator module. So, I mean, it's just been going great, and it's an exciting game. I mean, everything is in working order as far as we can see. So really at this point, we're just sanding down rough edges and fixing little rules, tweaks, things like that. It's really in very good shape, and we're both still very excited about how it's evolved.
Nice, thank you. Jerry, you want to jump in?
Okay, thanks for, I was hoping to just lurk, but thanks for holding this, Gene, and thanks to Harold for having the convention. I've been skeptical about virtual conventions, but this has been fantastic. So yeah, just to echo what Gene is saying, it's coming along really well. Gene sent out a call 1 or 2 e-blasts ago, and we got inundated by playtesters, which is great. We actually had to turn some back, but we got something like 50. It's been great. So those rough edges are definitely getting sanded down, and pretty excited. I thought I would be too tired for this project, but it's gotten me pretty excited about it. So that's been fun. But thanks.
Nice. Jerry, you want to tell us anything else you're working on?
Sure. Yeah. The next thing that'll be on P500, I have another design partner, and I guess we'll introduce him when it goes live. But basically, this is going to be a little bit different for what I've been doing. Everything I've done for GMT has been very 20th century, very World War II. But my real historical interest is in the American Civil War. So basically, we are designing it's kind of a unique game. It's basically a submarine game, believe it or not, but a submarine game in the 19th century. the American Civil War. There were Union and there were Confederate submarines. So basically in this game, it's solitaire. You will design and build a submarine, and then you will try to train your crew without killing them, which is not easy to do. And then hopefully actually attack something. You got to deal with funding. You have to deal with mechanisms, mechanics. I mean, the guys with wrenches and so on. So it's a lot. It's different, but it's a heap of fun. Yeah. And my design partner is Ed Ostermeyer, who is a writer, and he is just a fantastic partner. I mean, I was thinking Gina was, the paragon of partners, but Ed is giving Gina a good competition there. So I'm pretty excited about that. Maybe later, P500 later this year.
Cool. I can't wait to play that. I think maybe you should drive up to San Luis and I'll drive over to San Luis and we should just play it together.
Sure. Actually, Ed lives in Tennessee. I want to go to Tennessee and visit some of the battlefields over there.
Ooh,
I think we should meet there.
My son lives in Nashville, so we could probably work that out.
There it is.
All right. Thanks, Jerry. And thanks, Gina. Really appreciate that. John Butterfield, fellow Giants fan.
Hey there, Gene. Thank you.
Tell us what you're working on. I know you unwrapped the big surprise gift today. So tell us a little about that.
Sure. Well, first, I just wanted to thank Jason for plugging Space Corp Ventures and its imminent release. Very happy about that. And also, right now, we're looking at editing and correcting some of the files for the second printing of Space Corp itself. So that's underway as well. Yeah, but the big thing I wanted to talk about was the game Downfall. And Downfall is a design by Chad Jensen that he'd been working on for over 10 years in various forms, and finally settled on an incredibly innovative approach to the subject, which is a tried and true subject. It's a strategic game on World War II in Europe. It's a 2-map game when you think about the size of it. In this game, you would think you'd be playing, the Axis against the Allies, but you're playing the Soviets against the Western Allies. And as the Soviets, you're also controlling the German forces in the West. And as the Western Allies, you're controlling the German forces in the East, which may remind some of you of a classic game called Battle for Germany, which is a small game on the end of World War II. And yes, that is that same concept, but there the similarity ends. Downfall begins at the height of the German expansion, the Axis expansion in World War II in the late 1942, and takes you all the way to the end of the war. And it uses an innovative timeline initiative-based system where you spend initiative in the form of time to do your orders. You select orders for your faction. So as the Soviets, you're controlling the Soviet faction and the West German or OKW faction. And depending on where you are on the timeline, that determines who gets to go next. There's no set sequence of play. It just time you spend to do something, and then how long you have to wait for the other players to catch up to you before you can do something again. And this timeline repeats, it represents a quarter, a historical quarter, 3 months of time. And so there's 10 of those in the game. So Chad had designed this to a certain point, but wasn't really happy with it. And it was kind of sitting there. And when I would go up to visit Chad, to work on Space Corp or to play other games with him and Kai, I would see this sitting on his table and I would beg him to let me play it because it looks so fantastic. And he said, well, I'm not quite happy with the combat system or this detail or that detail. When it's ready, yeah, you'll play it. So, incredibly, unfortunately, that didn't happen. But I had the game on my mind ever since then, and so I volunteered with Kai to finish the game, and so we're doing that now, and it's at the point where we're ready to turn it over to a developer to have a developer join the team and to start public playtesting. We're going to announce it on the P500 next month or the month after. Gene's been teasing it a little bit in some of the recent newsletters, but it'll be officially announced. And the way Chad worked, he was also a graphic designer. So the graphics for the game are already gorgeous, even though they're playtest graphics. So I think when we announce it and present it on the P500, it'll make a really nice splash, because there's a beautiful map and counters and cards all ready to go. What he didn't have was rules. So that's what we've been working on. So just really happy to share the news that game will be going forward. And be officially announced next month. So
thanks, John. I think most of you guys probably know that Chad was a very dear friend of mine. I mean, I'm friends with so many of our designers, but I was really close to Chad, and still am to Kai. And so after he passed, I basically told her, anything you want to do to honor Chad's memory, we will do. Anything we can do to help you or to help promote Chad's games, we'll do. And I don't say that in that we're going to not help all of our other designers, but to me, that was a special situation. And so, we got Dominant Species Marine done. I see people online saying Chad's Jensen's last game, and I kind of smile, because I appreciate that they're saying that, but the truth is he had 4 or 5 other projects. And we're trying, as we find people that are willing, like John was, to work with Kai to finish something, and somebody who has the skill to do that, we're trying to get these things done over time. So don't be surprised if you see more Chad Jensen / somebody co-designs. In this case, the somebody is quite an accomplished somebody there, Mr. John Butterfield. But we'll have probably more of these if things go well. Because Kai is family, and we're going to take care of her. So, Trevor, you want to share with us what's up with you?
Yeah, thanks, Gene. Thanks, Harold. Just 3 quick updates. As always have in the back of my mind, keeping track of events as they occur real time for a possible future 3rd expansion of Labyrinth. And of course, the news over the last 2 or 3 weeks has kept me writing down the card titles. We're up to about 89 now of potential card titles. So that's ongoing. Secondly, my latest publication was the Battle of Kursk. Tigers Are Burning in C3I number 34, for those of you tracking that series. It's going to be the first of what will be called the Combined Arms series. So I got 2 or 3 other titles, and then back my mind that are working. Those will be in this issue after next, not the next one, but the one after. And then lastly, I'm real excited about some research I've been doing for a potential volume 2 of Silver Bayonet. And I'm looking at 2 different topics. One would be the Australian-New Zealand commitment to Vietnam, covering the entire 1965 up to 73, their entire commitment. They had 5 different battalions that rotated in and out. And the particular province they were in was just north of Saigon, so it could all fit on one map, similar to Silver Bayonet. The other one that I'm recently doing research on is the Battle of Khe Sanh, and the Hill Battle is just to the north of that. And that would be a perfect map size for the operational scale, or the operational tactical scale that Silver Bayonet provides. So I'll send you more info on that later on, Gene, but that research is real interesting to me. So that's it for me. Thank you.
That sounds really cool, Trevor. The only thing I would caution you is the original designer of that series, I hear he's really a jerk to work with. So you're in some trouble, okay? And,
I'm a pretty nice guy. I'll soften his heart.
I would love to have some more games in that series. That would be so cool. So yeah, let me know when you're ready. Harold not only put on a tremendous game convention, but he is an accomplished designer in his own right. So Harold, why don't you give us an idea of what you've been working on?
Hey, Gene, that's easy. Thank you. And it is Flashpoint South China Sea. So we are in art with Flashpoint South China Sea. We've got cards. Terry Leeds is working on setting up the rules. And Jason has become the developer on the game, which I couldn't be more excited about, except that I believe it's, Jason, you're working on now 306 different games as developer. Is that correct?
It's 307 as of this
Sorry,
call,
now it's 307. Yes, in the last 15 minutes, he's picked up another. So I'm pumped. You know, Jason's great, and we're having a good time. And Terry's awesome, so we're just having a blast. Jason is also working on the second Flashpoint game, but I won't say anything about that. I'll let Jason do that on his own time. And you know, I've got more ideas on Flashpoint and other things. So more to follow, but that's it for me, Gene. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Harold. And I want to thank everybody who's come tonight, your customers who are giving us great questions and comments, and all the team members. And I just want to say something to you team members. You know, the world has dealt with a lot of problems in the last year, and in some ways we're more divided in this country than we've ever been. And I don't want to get all political about this, but I just want to say that it is my great pleasure to work with a group of people who are as talented and as caring and opening to listening to other people as you men and women are. It is an honor to work with you. I believe if you guys could be the ones in charge of solving these problems that our politicians go after, we'd have it whipped, because you have the right attitude and approach, and you've got all the skill in the world. And it's just my great honor to work with you. So I want to leave that out there. And I want to thank everybody who's come. If I missed anybody, and you know, reveal yourself and talk. But I think I got everybody.
I think we got Bruce Mansfield on the call.
Oh, dang, I forgot Bruce. How did I do that? Bruce, I'm sorry. I owe you dinner.
I can't think of a better lead-in though. So thanks, Gene. On my plate. We'll figure this out. No, I just have a real quick update about Fallout Saigon. Jason talked earlier about the multiplayer game, and I've been working on the solitaire bot. This has been a 2-year project that started in 2019 when I got a call from Volko, and he said, boy, we really like the card-based bot for Gandhi. Would you like to do that for Fallout Saigon? And you know, one of my life rules is if Volko asks you to do something, you say yes. And so I jumped in, and then immediately I pitched him and said, you know, it'd be really cool if we did card-based bots for Fire in the Lake first, and then crazy people could play from 64 to 75 solo and play both games. And so he said, yeah, go for it. Not knowing how much work that would take, but with Jason's help and a great testing team, and we took the Argena system and we updated it for Fire in the Lake for June that came out a year ago. And I think that was kind of proof of concept for us that the system could be modified and updated to fit the needs of a more complicated game. So we jumped into Follow Saigon, and I'll show you some of the art that we've got working on right now. Oops, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Probably not. Do you see Follow Saigon, or do you see my?
It's on its way, I think.
All right. It's not there. All right, I'll fiddle with that later. So, okay, if in your head, if you can picture what we did for Gandhi or Fire in the Lake, it's essentially the same system, and our goal was to make that as smooth as possible. So we've got the same deck of cards.
But it's bigger.
It's big. It's bigger. Yeah. The difference is we went to tarot-sized cards. We have larger cards for the bots, because we just need to accommodate more information given the complexity of Follow Saigon. And we've got a similar set of systems with the space selection tables, and everything fits together in one little package that you can have out and play. And we have a full separate system for the 2-player Black April scenario, as well as the multiplayer 4-player that we have on separate PACs. So it should be pretty quick and smooth to transition either right from Fire in the Lake into Follow Saigon, or just a game of Follow Saigon, either the 2-player or 4-player. So we're pretty excited to see that. That should be, the design is done, and we're doing proofs on final art right now. And it should be out to you as soon as possible. So I'm pretty excited about that. Well, thanks everybody. And thanks Harold for another awesome online session.
That's great, Bruce. Thanks so much for sharing that with us. Harold, you got anything else?
No, Gene, I would like to say that GMT has been a tremendous supporter of the SD HistCon for years and years. And not only that, Gene and GMT both, but also all the designers that make the trip to San Diego and participate in our online con have been fantastic. And Gene is an advisor. You know, you give me I'd love to tell the story sometime of just 6 or 8 ideas that you've given us for the con that have made the con better. So I couldn't appreciate more you and GMT and all the designers' support of the San Diego Hist Con. So thanks a lot.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. I think that's it. I appreciate everybody coming, and thanks for all your input. And you team members, you'll be hearing from me in the next week or so as we get or 2 weeks as we get another designer developer update. Everybody else, crossing our fingers to when we can be at conventions again, face to face, huh?